on Substack, so I want to welcome you. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. Welcome, everybody. So, I am your coach that has created um, something that I think will really help those of you that have had your share of relationships, of challenges, of things that didn't go so well, if we're honest. And I just want to share with you that sometimes in our love affairs, we are having our, you know, all kinds of sorts of crazy going on. And so I want to talk about that today because I am drawn to assisting, helping, and my actual soul design is to encourage everyone that is going through any type of challenges or um, relationship storms. And I call them soul eclipses in our relationships. And a soul eclipse is when, we hear about solar eclipse. There's a shading that comes over the moon and there becomes a darkness. Well, that same thing happens in our love affairs. And unfortunately, a lot of times we rush to wanting to pull out of that relationship because we desire to have sunshine all the time or have the full moon where it's shining. And actually, unfortunately, life be lifing, and, and we don't have that happening because, again, relationships go through its changes, go through its evolutions. I even call it going through its growing pains. And so, through that, a lot of times we have our um, unfortunate eclipses that feels very difficult to go through. So, welcome. Be sure to subscribe to Soul Eclipse. I do a lot more in depth training, teaching, and I'm now going to start to evolve into gifting my Substack family with more rich, documented um, content to where you can really use it outside of just reading about it and seeing it or whatever, but you're actually going to be able to apply it in your love affair and in your life. So it's not just about, oh, this is something I can use. Well, yes, it is, but outside of that, this is something that not only you can use, but you can apply so that your relationships can be richer. It can be more fulfilling, and it could be definitely much more desirous if you can imagine that. So, I want to welcome you today. The reason why I think this is important is a lot of times we will say that we have relationships that are heart based, heartfelt. We like to call them love or cared about. And oftentimes we mistake attraction, we mistake um, infatuation, and we mistake um I don't know. We also mistake not only just that, just any type of care for soul care and love. And we think that it is that. But sometimes and oftentimes it's just lust. It's not necessarily love. And because we have a good run with love making or good rapport, good solid conversations, we get along well, we assume that we have already reached a level of SoulAllure that we can come together and go ahead and proceed into an intentional SoulAllure love affair, intimacy, marriage, partnership, um, poly situationships, or whatever, and we evolve before the development actually happens. And so when the development isn't actually sustainable or has actually evolved into that, we start to feel like, man, I thought we were at a different space. I thought we were going to be able to grow this. We were going to be able to be more solid. Well, just to let you know, it sounds good. However, oftentimes we want relationships to be what we want it to be, but we don't realize that even though we're not where we need to be at, we start to feel away and we start to get aggravated, agitated, and then quick tempered because we want what we want the way we want it. So, with that said, we just get frustrated and we just say, forget it. And if that's the case, well, that's the case. But sometimes we're prematurely shoveling ourselves out of solid relationships without really knowing how our love, what I call soul allure level is in the relationship. So I want to kind of explain to you that the soul allure is the heart base of how we feel inside the love affair we're in. And so when we have soul allure, we actually start to build a relationship, a connection, a understanding, a willingness to see how we can flow. Now, in the beginning, we can learn how we flow based upon how we talk to each other, how we're willing to listen to each other, how we're willing to engage with each other without getting so caught up in, well, what are we? What are we doing? Are we together now since we had sex? And it's like, that's neither here nor there. We're wanting to see, where is the soul allure? How do we know what that is? Is it solid or is it not? And a lot of times we don't realize that, yeah, we have soul allure pillars here to look at, but we don't know what that what that means. So I don't know if you already have your soul allure image, but if you don't, and you want to learn about it, I will have no problem with helping you with understanding what it is. Now, here's the thing. Soul allure, I know I'm talking about relationships, but soul allure starts with you first. You know, if you are a client or if you're someone that follows me or you're someone that reads my work, you understand that I am going to always encourage you to understanding that soul allure starts with you first. No matter what relationship you're in, you're going to take you with you. Okay, always remember that. So there is 5 pillars that I want to share with you. And we're not going to spend a long time on here. This is the first live, so I'm not going to keep it real extensive, but I am going to keep it to where it gives you an understanding of what soul allure really is and how it helps you to know how to understand the power that we hold within our soul first, and then how the soul allure we have within then meets the love or lovers, depending on your style of relations, the lover or lovers that you're involved with, how we come to meet and build into a soul allure relationship, intentional, vivacious, long-term relationship, if it gets to that. So there are 5 pillars in the soul allure. And the first one is self soul stability. So write that down. Self love, self soul stability. And this is very foundational for you to understand. What that means is it is the foundation of the love you have for yourself. Now, Anyone that has been coming to me for coaching, anyone that has been guided from me in my coaching, anyone that I'm close to or in friendships, relationships with, I often tell them, no matter what, you cannot place your own soul on the back burner. You want to make sure that your soul allure is definitely something that you are focusing on for self first. Now, I wrote this down. The measures of your soul allure for you in your self soul stability is 1, self trust, self identity, self with how you handle your personal boundaries. Don't forget about your self responsibility. And then whether someone is entering love from wholeness rather than depletion. So, this is why I always say when we enter into soul love, soul allure, soul and being enamored by someone, we have to make sure we're whole first. We can't sidestep this. This has to be handled first because no matter what, you go with you. Therefore, there has to be clarity in all of those things I mentioned. Okay? So, if you need additional information, don't hesitate to reach out. I do have an 800 number called the Wisdom Line. It's 844-594-7366 and say, "Hey, coach, I would like to receive clarity on the 5 pillars of soul allure." And without a shadow of a doubt, I will shoot the image over to you. Okay? Now, next, soul pillar 2 is desire resonance. Write this down. Desire resonance. So, desire resonance means how well you desire your relationship, vision wise, and if the relationship and the vision are aligned. Okay. So, that is vitally important for you to think about. We desire relationships, yes. Why we do is a different question. So we can desire relationships, but the question is, are we desiring it because of emptiness and we're wanting a relationship to fulfill us? Or are we whole and full first and the relationship is to enjoy and be compatible and be in alignment with having soul resonance, and we also have soul purpose together? This is a completely different way to look at it, but this is the pillars. These are things that a lot of times people don't sit down to look at because they're more busy about, "Oh, I'm so in love. I just want us to be together," and all of those things. And that's fine. But when you skip these steps, you often find out that relationships don't last because if we're not clear in the beginning about our self soul stability and our desire resonance, if we don't have these two in place first, then bringing someone in to our world and trying to soul allure with it, we're coming in without wholeness. We're coming in empty. And we're really requiring a lot from someone else to make us feel full. And this is why a lot of times relationships go in these turbulences. They become very just completely dysfunctional because the arguments, the difficulties start to raise into our relationship because we aren't solid with our self soul stability, nor are we really okay with understanding what is our actual desire resonance looking like. Okay, that's soul pillar number 2. Soul pillar number 3, soul care capacity. Now, soul care capacity is not something you can just mull over. Soul care capacity is vital vitally important, because oftentimes we desire certain things, but we don't realize what that actual desire for that relationship requires. Because again, we're so stuck on what we want versus what it is. So now, let's be honest. How many times are we so caught up in wanting to look the part that we forget how important it is to be the part? So, soul care capacity means, what is my capacity for soul love, for soul allure? What is my capacity? Do I have one? Have I even checked to see what my capacity of my soul allure is? Do I know what that is? Well, let me fill you in. What is your ability to nurture another soul? What is your ability to nurture another soul? And what I mean by nurturing is not about kissing, hugging, and caring and lovey-dovey and PDA. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm actually talking about how much can you do to nurture someone's soul. That means how much can you study your soul allure for someone else. That means, am I able to sit down in this relationship and be okay with studying someone, not from judgment, but from learning? How can I learn someone if I haven't taken the time to study and learn myself? Hmm? That's the biggest struggle. So it's vitally important we sit down and we look at, well, if I have a capacity to care and be understanding and supportive for someone else, what can I do for me to understand that, and how do I do that? Do I do it naturally, or do I do it by performing that I do it? Because again, these are all things that should come natural, but oftentimes they don't, because we haven't really cultivated in our own soul and spirit how our capacity for how we show soul care, soul support. We don't realize that it may not come natural. And how we know it doesn't is based upon how someone responds to when we give it. Sometimes when you're not very willing, you start to see that someone will feel uncomfortable with you. They'll feel angry by you asking certain things. And so when they get to that place of anger or frustration, you don't understand why it's an anger going on, but the anger is going on because there isn't really, truly, honestly, a space where your care appears to be authentic, or your care seems or appears to be really from the heart. And so it's, unfortunately, it's not received well. It's received as fake, unfortunately. It's not, because you're trying, but it's not coming from the heart. So we're going to go over them again. I see another one joined. Welcome. So we're going over this again one more time so we know. We have 5 soul pillars. The SoulAllure Pillars is how we can gauge, how we engage in soul allure. Soul allure is also, if we want to compare it to loving someone or loving another or loving in a relationship. And so there's 5 pillars to look at, because oftentimes we don't realize that the pillars are not easy to gauge, but they are definitely something that we should pay attention to and understand. So the first one, if you just now joined, the first one was self soul stability. So that means, how stable are you in your soul allure with you? Do you put yourself first? Do you have Do you ever spend enough time studying yourself, paying attention to what you're good at, knowing what it is you need, not want, need, while you're here? paying attention to these kind of things is vitally important so that you understand how to be able to invite someone else into your life, and you can gift them from the space of how you gift you. I say all the time, since you're new and joined, that you go with you no matter what relationship you're in. So with that said, how do you do with your soul care for you? That's one. That's SoulAllure 1. Pillar 1. Pillar 2, desire resonance. How are you doing with that? So when we're talking about soul resonance, it means how do we desire, and we're not talking about just desiring based upon relating with someone else, but we are talking about desiring how we take care of ourselves. How are we doing with not even just being paired with someone, but how do we actually align with someone else? What is our desire resonance with someone? Because if you go into something based upon how attracted you are, how great you love make, how great you dance at the club, how great you have fun in traveling, all of that is fine. And you don't argue and all of these things, that's surface level. But when you get to the root and into the solidity of a relationship, you're going to have challenges, and you're going to come across a soul eclipse. Soul eclipse is when the darkness comes into the relationship. And sometimes in those phases, you'll start to realize, ooh, there's some things we haven't faced. There's some things we haven't talked about. There's some things we have to work on. And we've been walking around this elephant in the middle of the room because we don't want to acknowledge it. So that's fine, but that's what it is. Okay? So that's soul allure pillar 2. Soul allure pillar 3 is soul care capacity. What is your capacity with your soul allure? Some people can love one, some people can love many. Some people can love multiple, some people can only deal with one at a time. Know this. Everybody's different. So there's no judgment here. I don't have time to say what's right or wrong and moral and all that. That's not my business. But know it. Know your capacity. Because when you become over capacity in love affairs, you start to get overwhelmed. You start to build in anxiety. You start to build in frustration. And then you get chaotic. And then everything goes awry. So it's very important for you to understand and to know, what is my soul care capacity? Do I know me enough to know how much I can handle? Because if I don't know, then I'm going to be in a shambles, because I'm going to try to bite off. Remember the old school, bite off more than I can chew? Yes, that will be you if you're not aware of what your capacity is. And let me just say this. Just because you maybe in your past has had multiple people, or maybe in your past you've had one, whichever, doesn't mean that that's etched in stone with your capacity. Because as we evolve and change, so can our soul allure. So these pillars are just for you to take a look at for you, but don't get judgy with it. This is just what you know for now in your today you're old. You right now know, well, I'm here as far as knowing my capacity as to what I can handle. If that's the case, then you know it from here till tomorrow. But we don't know what's going to happen next week. So again, this is something you have to continue to check in on. Not because it's getting complicated, but it's important that you understand it so that you know, oh, okay, this is how I come to learn of me. And this is how I learn to come of understanding my love or lovers that I'm involved with. Okay? That is soul care capacity. Pillar 3. Pillar 4. Resonance reciprocity. This is my favorite. Resonance reciprocity is my favorite pillar. for SoulAllure, because oftentimes when we are in a different stage or phase in our relationship, and our relationship goes through phases just like the moon does. And so when we're going through different soul phases in our love affairs, we might find that the reciprocity isn't where it needs to be, and we can get frustrated by it. Not only frustrated, we can get totally hurt or feel totally unaligned, or we can also feel totally unseen. And so it's really important that we pay attention to the importance of knowing when you have the um, understanding that our actual regard for each other, how we flow with each other, our reciprocity is really good, or when one is really low and the other is doing a lot more work, it doesn't always mean that that's going to be always the way it will. It just may be a phase. It may be a soul phase. It doesn't mean that that's going to be the forever stage. But sometimes that also changes in love affairs. So, understanding that will take you out of feeling too much about the phase you're in. The allure, it has its shared time to where you may feel it's more joint versus feeling like it's more heavy or more unbalanced. But it doesn't mean that the love affair is done. It just means that it's going through a soul phase. In that, understanding that, it can take you out of feeling so overwhelmed or frustrated. It allows you to just give yourself some time to allow the evolution of it to be revealed to you. Okay? So don't get overwhelmed. Just understand. Sometimes it could be a little bit much, but it's not that it's over. It's just that it has gone through something that's a challenge, something that you weren't prepared for. It's just what it is. It doesn't mean you have to get frustrated or angry or bitter, but understand this is how it happens. Reciprocity is what it is. And since it's reciprocity, understand that the law of reciprocity means it's a give and a take. Here's where it gets funky, especially for those of us who aren't good at putting self first, or we kind of lack in self soul love and care. We start to give more than we have to give. And then we deplete our soul because we're trying to overcompensate. And if that's the case, again, I encourage you to text the wisdom line 844-594-7366, 844-5 wisdom, so that you realize, oh, my carrying on in my relationship, I'm not really doing well with the reciprocity piece. Something inside me is lacking or missing something. So now I need to figure out what that is. And in that, we can work together on coming up with the terms as to how do we first work on going back to pillar one, which is self soul stability first. Now, just because you're in a solid relationship doesn't mean that you're in the pillar and you're not getting what you're desiring. Doesn't mean we can't go back and refresh and revive and reform the soul. So just because you might not be in the greatest state, it doesn't mean that you can't rejuvenate and fix it. So just to let you know, this is one of the powers of learning. Sometimes we just need some type of assistance with getting some understanding of how things work. Okay. The last pillar. Please share this. Because, like I said, this is the first live, but I'm so glad you're here. And I would love to keep increasing the views and keep doing these 5 pillars, because they really do help when you do actually apply what I'm advising. And like I said, if you do definitely want the image, don't forget to text the line and you will get the image that gives you all the pillars so you have them for yourself. Okay? Last but not least, Eclipse Evolution, pillar number 5. Eclipse Evolution. And feel free to write this down. How a couple grows is what this pillar highlights. How a couple grows. Now, let's just use, as an example, let's use a plant, shall we? Let's use a plant as an example of evolution. Okay, so here's what we want to do. The eclipse evolution will allow us to evolve. And in the evolution of the eclipse, it shows us how when we start with a plant in the soil and we add the seed and you can't see anything. This is where you're at when you're at pillar 5. You can't see. You can't see where you're at. You just know that you evolved from the eclipse. So that means that you're now in a state of coming out of all knowing to coming into not knowing. And so when you're unknowing of something, you're now going to have to allow for the growth to begin. That requires patience. That requires time. That requires allowances. That requires resonance to show. But you have to, in order to get that, you have to be willing to work on allowing for someone to be in their wholeness and who they are without you hovering over them, trying to make them to be the version of what you have in your mind to be them. That, my love, is the hardest part, because we desire to have someone to be our way, our version of who they are in our mind, for them to match that. And so when we realize, oh my God, they're not that, they're someone else, we have to now really erase our memory of who we think they are. And in that erasure of the image we have, we now allow them to show us who they are. And in that, this is how SoulAllure deepens. This is how SoulAllure starts to grow. Because now, what I thought you were, it's gone. You don't have to meet that standard anymore. You can now be you. And you don't owe me anything. I would rather you be you in your soul totality versus you being someone that I want you to be based upon what version it is in my heart and mind. Help me to see the real you in real time. Now, in that totally is not something easy to do, because now all of our pre-assumptions, all of our so-called prejudices, all of our desires of what we thought this person is going to be, all of that is all illusion. So now we have to get off of that boat and now come into this new understanding that, oh, now is the time that I can actually enjoy learning who you are in real time and getting off of this desire of learning you and who I think you should be. Now you get to show me you. And now in this SoulAllure where we're at, now I get to see you for you. This is how powerful it is. But again, this is the toughest part, because when you see a plant, you don't see it in the seed. You just see a pot and you see some brown soil. You don't know you don't know there's a seed there. But you, rather than trying to poke at the soil and rush it and hurry it up into the light and pour more water, and to the point that you're killing the seed, you now allow the seed to evolve to what it's going to be. And this is where time and patience come in. This is how SoulAllure begins to form, cultivate. It happens by us getting out of trying to force our will on them being what we want them to be, and allowing them to become who they are. And now we can really truly find a true allure for someone, or if we have, now we can see them for who they are, not based upon, oh, I thought you were going to do this for me. I thought we were going to be that. That's in your head. That's not what it is. So once we get off of that and we start to understand that, it starts to be more beautiful, because now we're cultivating understanding. Now we're cultivating the raw, the real, and we're getting off of this demand of someone being something we want them to be versus who they are. Think about that plant. Think about how you don't water it to just drown it to where the dirt is just all over the place. You just slightly sprinkle water like we do in seeing the rain fall from the sky. It's very gentle, very sweet, very kind. And you allow them to show you them without being judgy. Come to know them. You learn that while you're understanding how you cultivate eclipse evolution. This is how powerful it is. We get away from trying to sit and be this and be that. I want you to be this. I want you to be that. And we have these demands, and then we find ourselves hurt because we're disappointed. We're not getting what we want. Well, you're not getting what you want because you're not allowing someone to show you who they are, so you can come to learn who they are versus what you want them to be. And now you're starting to cultivate something much more rich, because now your soul allure is in real time. It's not based upon, oh, I have to have this, I have to have that, I have to meet this guideline and that guideline. No, you get to now see it for what it is. I hope you enjoyed this today. Don't forget to share this. Understand that the soul allure is powerful, but it is also something that we must remember, that soul allure isn't something that you just get because you're attracted. Soul allure isn't something you just get because you've been together for a long time. SoulAllure isn't just based upon, oh, we have a great resonance, we have a great rapport, we travel well, we have a good time. It's not that either. SoulAllure develops when you first start with you. And then through all of those pillars, we start to realize that we get all kinds of things that grow when we take the time of soul studying and learning what it is we need. And then we start to cultivate the power of being engaged with how we are, coming to allow someone to show us them. And then in the coming to know, we're actually getting to learn, oh, the love isn't just about me to you, but it's also getting patient with understanding someone might be not what I thought they were, but you know what? I actually like this person more, because this person that I was trying to fit in the box of my mind is totally different. And now I've taken my time to learn them. And now I like them even more now. And now the soul allure is deepened, not just with them, but with you as well. So thank you for joining me this evening. I'm glad you're here. Again, don't forget to subscribe to my Substack. Make sure to share this. Sit down and watch this again. Take notes and even let me know, how did you apply it? Did it work for you? This is what I do this for. It's not just to be on here just to chit chat. This is to help you to use it today. If this helps you, please let me know. Share it, like it, comment, tell me where you're from. And like I said, when I go live again, I'll be sure to let you know. I'm out of here, guys. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday and you have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Good night.